Hello, I'm your host, Mike Luoma, and this is Dynamic Voice Acting. Welcome to...
Oh, you muted yourself in the middle of your introduction.
No, I'm so sorry. Let me fix that.
Muted me. Who's muting me?
I apologize. I was trying to mute myself.
Hey.
We'll fix it in post.
I didn't do that to myself. I was trying to talk. I'm Mike Luoma, and I am the moderator for the panel for Dynamic Voice Acting tonight. And I'm a science fiction author, audiobook narrator, longtime podcaster. My glow-in-the-dark radio has been going on since 2006. And I'm currently podcasting my Vatican Assassin 15th Anniversary Edition, which has some special guest voice cameos, including a couple people who are on this panel. Veronica and Starla are on there. I've also got Polly Cooley and Keith Hughes and John Moreau and Dave Robinson and Scott Sigler on there as well, all doing little voice cameos for me, and which was an awesome thing. And so thanks again to everybody who did that, and to V and Starla who are here. And I want to let everybody else introduce themselves because we have a stellar panel. So Veronica, why don't you start?
Okay. Hi, I'm Veronica Giguere, aka V. I am an audiobook narrator and science fiction author. That's what I do. This is my office where I work. And I am tickled pink and red. Usually there'd be a red dress. I have a red sweatshirt. Yeah, gotta do things different because Zoom. But this is literally my favorite Balticon panel, so I am so excited to hang out and have some fun with these guys.
All right, Doc, you want to say hello?
Hello, I'm Doc Coleman. I'm a steampunk author. I write steampunk comedy adventure. I also am a voice actor. I've actually done work for Veronica, and I had to hang up my my microphone a while ago in order to concentrate on writing, but as soon as I get the work I'm currently editing, The Kindred of Kali, published, I'm going to go back and I'm going to do the audiobook or the audio podcast for The Perils of Prague, most likely where I will do all the voices. So I'm very happy to be here. I've wanted to be on this panel for a long time, and I feel honored to be in the presence of these other talented people.
All right, Christiana?
Hi, I'm Christiana Ellis, and I'm a writer and podcaster, and I have done a number of different voice acting type things over the years, including my own audio drama, Space Casey, and I am frequently, or have often been, a narrator for Pseudopod, Escape Pod, and Podcastle, and the like. And also I do lots of voices in my regular live streamed Dungeons and Dragons campaign, of which Starla is a player. But I am also very happy to be here on this panel. Hooray!
And Starla, say hello.
Hello, I am Starla Huchton. I am an author, I am an audiobook narrator, and a freelance cover designer. I also play Dungeons and Dragons in so many levels, Christiana Ellis's Tuesday night game. Currently playing a bard, if y'all were curious. As far as audio stuff goes, I started back in 2009. Podcasted my first ever book, The Dreamer's Thread, and people liked the way I sounded, so I kind of just kept doing it. And yeah, the last project that I did, I believe, was Gail Carragher's The Heroine's Journey. It's a nonfiction title that came out in like December, I think. Yeah, we got some other projects in the works too. It's exciting. Yeah.
Very cool. So I want to start with a couple of questions about the process of dynamic voice acting. Let's pretend I'm an ignorant podcaster or audiobook narrator. And what would be the first thing you'd tell me I need to learn to go from simple narration to voice acting? And let's go in reverse order from introduction. Starla, how about you start?
Ooh, I think, unless you want to talk about the software and the hardware parts of it, strictly from the acting standpoint, I think the thing that I've worked hardest on is pacing. because reading a narration or a voice part for like fiction works and things that people are going to be listening to, you're going to want to speak a little bit slower, especially on things like Audible and stuff. People can speed it up or slow it down. So yeah, you want to work on pacing so that you're not reading too fast and, you know, sound like you're rushing towards a fire. So that would be my first thing.
Christiana, what would you say?
Well, certainly it's important to be able to be understood, but you also need to embody the emotion of the text. The worst possible thing that can happen in voice acting is that it's boring. Even when you're playing a boring character, it should be entertaining, and that requires you to feel what you want the audience to be feeling.
Doc, what would you say as far as like trying to go from being just a straight narrator to doing characters?
I always look at the narrator as a particular character. But for me, the narrator is a character. The narrator is the storyteller who's sitting there telling you the story. This person wants to be clear. They want to be understood. When you're actually putting on the character and being the person in the story, you're doing the acting. You've got to pull up that emotional level. Sometimes you need to be clear. Sometimes you don't care if you're clear. As long as you can express, as long as you can clearly express what it is you're trying to say, which I am failing to do right now. But and I always get into it much more in terms of performance, because when you're a narrator, you're not really speaking the way people talk, but when you're being the character, you need to speak the way people talk. That's part of what makes the audience believe the character.
And Veronica, what guidance would you have?
Well, it really comes back to what you said. It's voice acting. First and foremost, when you're getting in front of a microphone, you are an actor. And so it's looking at the characters, reading between the lines. When you're an author and you're writing stuff down, you know that there's stuff that you push out there that the reader is going to infer. As an actor, you've got to infer that and put that into your performance. So I think one of the most important things to bring to it is the acting, the emotion, and letting yourself get lost in it. Because if you're true to the character, a lot of the other things are naturally going to fall into place. You're going to get the pacing of how that character speaks. You're going to be clear, or maybe you're not going to be clear. And if you are acting, if you're interested in the character that you're portraying, other people are going to be interested and engaged by your performance.
Cool. Now, we are going to have some fun here, but I want to ask one more question first. So let's start with you, Christiana, on this one. What's the biggest misconception people have about dynamic voice acting?
Ooh, well, first I was going to make a joke about like, oh, are we not supposed to be having fun yet? Sorry. I didn't realize I started the fun already. But I think probably the biggest misconception is that although there are certainly lots of things about voice acting compared to face acting, body acting, where like, the costumes are less of a factor, that sort of thing. But it's not easier. It's just different, right? It's in fact, without the ability to convey emotion via facial expression and body language, it's all the more important that these things come across in the voice, but they all inform each other. And so Just because no one can see your face does not mean that your facial expression while speaking is not informing the way your voice sounds. And it's the classic example of, if you're smiling, your voice sounds different than if you're frowning. Like, obviously you could work on that, but it's important to keep in mind all of those things, even the stuff people can't see.
I worked at a radio station for like 18 years where constantly they had a thing right above us that always said, smile. So I know what you mean. Doc, what do you think the biggest misconception is about dynamic voice acting?
I would think that the biggest misconception about voice acting in general is that it's easy. This is a skill that has to be practiced and honed. And it's not just sitting in front of a mic and making funny voices. That while it's not as physical as traditional acting, it has all of the same elements. You've got to understand the character. You've got to be able to put yourself in the mindset where you can wrap that character on and speak with that voice, especially if you're actually doing multiple characters in a continuous recording. You've got to be able to go from one character to the next character to the third character.
Oh, I couldn't hear what you just said at the end there, Doc.
It's a skill you only build up with practice.
Practice, practice, practice. V, what do you think is the biggest misconception people have?
Kind of piggybacking on what Doc said, that it's easy or that it's not physical. If you're really into a story and really into a character, and you do, a couple chapters as you're narrating, or you're getting that whole script out, you get emotionally tired. You get invested. If you are doing, a scene or a chapter where if you'd be reading it, you'd be in tears, I promise you, the person who's narrating those characters and bringing those characters to life, they're going to walk away from the microphone, grab a box of Kleenex and bawl for 10 minutes to get that emotion out. And, it's when you do this, you learn how to compensate. Maybe that's the right word. You learn how to manage it. And you learn that maybe you only do a little bit of work one day because you're going to be emotionally wrecked and need to go get chocolate to recover. This is a thing that happens. So it may not be physically taxing, but let's face it, you can be emotionally taxed and be physically exhausted. So it really is a holistic whole body experience.
That's very true. Starla, what do you think is the biggest misconception people have?
Well, I definitely agree with what Veronica says, but not all projects are created equal. So I'm going to say that one of the biggest misconceptions is that while what Veronica said is true, if you have a really well-written project, if you don't, you have to be really good at faking that.
True.
So, yeah, there is actual acting involved in it. Like, especially if you have this script and it's kind of garbage. You have to be able to elevate that. And I think that's something that people may not know immediately going in, is that it is part of your job to lift the material that you're given to something even greater than what it is.
That's a good point. You can't just slack on it because it's not as good as you think it should be.
Yep.
But well-written material can just flow right out of you. And it's
Mm-hmm.
And then there's what we've got tonight. So I actually put together a bare bones script based on an actual real Zoom call from hell that happened. It was back in December, and that's going to be our dramatic reading for our dynamic voice acting here with our four illustrious voice actors. This was the Handforth Parish Council Zoom meeting from hell. over in Cheshire, England. I adapted it a little bit from the original transcript, but we've got Doc in 2 roles. He's going to be Council Brian Tolver and then Councillor Barry Burkle. And Veronica is going to be Jackie Weaver, who's the Zoom operator for this endeavor. And Christiana is going to be Councillor Susan Moore, and she's kind of a combined character. She's going to be like all the other councillors who don't have huge roles. So she's kind of like the amalgamation character. And Starla is going to be Aled's iPad. That's what it said on the screen. And he's kind of a shrill little toady. So this should be fun. This is our first run through anyway. Is going to be doing it kind of as it appeared. So let's take it from the top. It's the Henceforth Parish Council meeting from hell.
When do we plan to start?
Fuck off.
I think we can start any moment, Chairman. I think it is just helpful to go through the same things as we went through before, which is to encourage people to just switch off the microphones because it does reduce the background noise. I'll continue to admit people if you'd like to start the meeting, Chairman.
Can we be assured that we won't be thrown out of the meeting like last time?
As long as we have reasonable behavior from everyone, no one will be excluded from the meeting.
I was thrown out of the meeting. So was Councillor Brewerton.
Quite rightly.
As a point of order, Chairman, could we start the meeting?
Chair?
We haven't started the meeting yet. Do you want to speak anyway?
Yes, I'd like to ask a point of order.
We're not in a meeting, so points of order are not applicable.
Has it started yet? No?
Points of order apply during the debates. I want to ask Jackie if it was you who quoted a point of order.
Yes, it was indeed.
Are you here as the proper officer?
I am here supporting Handforth Parish Council in the conduct of this meeting this evening.
You're not the proper officer.
Is that as clerk or proper officer?
There's no difference between clerk or proper officer.
Of course there is.
Yes, there is.
You must know under basic law, I would have thought.
Are we going to start this meeting?
It isn't the role of somebody who, however, kindly volunteers to do the clerking for a meeting to act as a proper officer if they haven't been appointed. That's against the law.
This meeting has been called by 2...
And let me also quote you the standing orders of Hanford. Will you stop talking?
Unless we are prepared
Will
to...
you please listen? Will you please listen? Will you stop being whatever it is you're trying to be and just click the meeting if that's what you want to do? Points of order, according to our standing orders, are determined by the chair. If you want to raise a point of order as a councillor, you ask if you could raise a point of order. You state it and let the chair decide. It is not for the clerk to raise a point of order. It is not for the clerk to decide a point of order. You must be aware of that. God knows what you're doing here if you're not.
Shall we elect an alternative, Chairman? So, Chairman, albeit late, shall we get this meeting started?
Right. We'll start the meeting, and I want to remind people of what I said at the start of last meeting, that this meeting has not been called according to the law. The law has been broken.
It has been properly called.
Will you please let the chairman...
Mrs. Weaver, please.
If you disrupt this meeting, I will have to remove you from it.
You can't.
It's only the chairman who can remove people from the meeting. You have no authority here, Jackie Weaver. No authority at all.
Tova is removed from the meeting.
She's just kicked him out.
I have indeed.
No, she's kicked him out. No, don't. She's kicked him out.
This is a meeting called by 2 councillors.
Illegally.
May now elect a chairman.
No, they can't because the vice chair is here. I take charge. Read the standing orders. Read them and understand them.
Dear me.
Appalling behavior. A copy of this will be, in fact, sent to the monitoring officer.
I'm the vice chair.
Where's the chairman?
Given the standing orders, it now reverts to me.
Where's the chairman gone?
Read the standing orders.
Would anyone like to elect a chairman for this meeting?
You don't have to elect a chairman. There's a chairman already installed, the chairman of the council.
Look, we've been through this.
What are you talking about? You don't know what you're talking about. The chairman of the council is the chairman of the council.
Burkhill, could I ask you to be respectful to Jackie Weaver, please?
The council will now elect a chairman.
Here comes a subpoena.
Chairman?
I want to leave. She's kicked Barry out, so I'm leaving. No, we're trying to have a Teams meeting, you fool. We're trying to have a Teams meeting, you fool. We can't. Have you got that? You just don't.
Jackie Weaver, I find that the person on Led Brereton's Zoom is being very disrespectful to everybody.
Oh, coming from you lot, that sounds good.
My first point is to apologize to Jackie, but welcome to Handforth. May I start?
Indeed, indeed. Nothing if not lively in Handforth.
Bravo. The Zoom meeting from hell.
Alas, that poor woman.
So who wants to talk first about the choices they made to embody these characters? Who feels like stepping up? Christiana?
Well,
Sure. So, I mean, my character in the script, as you mentioned, compared to the original video, is lines from a couple of different people. But by and large, it seems to be the only person who doesn't seem to realize that how crazy this all is. It's mostly just like, people seem to be being rude. If they would just stop, we could have a normal meeting. So I thought just kind of this woman who's not necessarily 100% aware of what's happening.
Starla, what do you think of Alan's iPad?
Well, so I got that direction that he was kind of a toady or whatever it was that you said, but I also watched the video and I was like, I don't get that impression. I got the impression that this was just somebody that was very frustrated and fed up and didn't really want to be there, and was like, because the guy was actually younger than all of the other counselors, so it's just like, why are all these old people here? Like none of them could, like they were having trouble figuring out the technology, and he was just really frustrated. So-
Doc, what did you think? You did two different characters.
I did two different characters, and it's looking at Counselor Tolliver. Part of what I got from this is that this gentleman is just exasperated and feels like everything's been spelled out. Why can't we just follow this and have an orderly meeting? And he doesn't realize how much him insisting on following the procedure is actually interrupting the meeting. But apparently this is a point of contention that he has with Mrs. Weaver, and he's not willing to let it go. And then the other character, Barry Burkhill, was just like, this dude is clueless. It's like it's kind of like, he's finally woken up to the meeting because he finished his video game or whatever, but he's like, did something happen? Wait a minute, did something happen?
What's going on here? Wait.
Yes.
And V, what about Jackie Weaver?
oh goodness. Well, like Starla, I went and watched the video, and it's what I got from the research, because we all research our characters. I got that she's usually not there, but she's used to running meetings. And she's like, okay, so this is how things go. Here are the rules. We're going to keep the peace, and we're going to have this get done efficiently. And she's used to dealing with blowhard guys in small town bureaucracy. So her bit is just to, keep calm and zoom on.
I think it's interesting how each of you found something very sympathetic about your characters. I think you have to do that in order to embody them. Or am I wrong? What do you think, Doc?
The saying is that everyone is the hero of their own story. So in the character's own mind, what they're doing is right and proper and makes sense. And what somebody else might be doing, they will cast their own view on it based on how it affects them. I definitely get the feeling that Counselor Tolliver very much felt like Jackie Weaver was the new volunteer who was coming in and usurping his position, and he was going to cling to his little tiny council power with every bit of strength that he had. He was probably an academic, but yeah, you definitely need to find out, figure out how these people think about themselves.
Yeah.
No,
My favorite thing, my favorite thing about the whole scene is really just that, you know, hypothetically, we might imagine that Tolliver is actually correct about the rules, what the rules say hypothetically. We don't really know. But at the same time, the point where he says, "You have no authority here, Jackie Weaver," and she demonstrates how wrong he is by immediately dumping him out of the Zoom meeting. And it's just like, oh yeah? Well, guess who has the actual power in the moment?
Yeah, it reminded me a lot of like, I got like homeowners association vibes from it. Every single person was just clinging to this little tiny bit of power that they had, and so yeah, like my job to research this character is like, okay, who is this? Who do I think this is? What is his point of view? And so that's what I was trying to bring to the table, you know, as opposed to like how Mike interpreted it and watching the video and making the script.
The infighting is so vicious because the stakes are so small.
Really are.
How dare you let your lawn be 6 3/4 inches high?
Right? How dare you?
Oh.
Your lights up one day after that was supposed to be down yesterday. Why are your trash cans still out 5 minutes after the garbage men have picked up your trash?
So clearly what we're saying is we can put together the script for next year's dynamic voice acting with the HOA, because people are pointing out in the chat that there have been Zoom bits for HOAs. And once the summer clears, we're going to have plenty of fodder.
Well, let's do the script again, but let's turn it on its head. Let's make Jackie Weaver a sort of dominatrix type. Let's make Tolliver and Burkill meek little boys. Susan Moore, let's have you be devious and trying to undermine everything. And Alad's iPad, I want you to be the virtuous knight in shining armor.
Okay.
Or something like that. And let's all do it in as close to a Russian accent as you can get.
Why not?
Why not? So let's give this a try. Once more from the top. It is the, well, I should do it with a Russian accent, I suppose, if I'm making you guys do this. The Hansworth Parish Council Zoom meeting. That was more German, I think. I don't know.
Yeah, I can't. This is going to be rough. I can't do this one.
All right, then go for it with whatever. Pick an
Well,
accent.
how about this? We declare in advance that what we are doing on purpose is bad Russian accents.
Okay.
Is moose and squirrel. It's always moose and squirrel.
Moose and squirrel, yeah. Or Chekhov. I think of Chekhov to get into it. All right, but we will start with you. Go for it, Doc.
When do we plan to start?
Fuck off.
I think we can start any moment, Chairman. I think it is just helpful to go through the same things as we went through before, which is to encourage people to just switch off their microphones because it does reduce the background noise. I'll continue to admit people if you'd like to start the meeting, Chairman.
Can we be assured that we won't be thrown out of the meeting like last time?
As long as we have reasonable behavior from everyone, no one will be excluded from the meeting.
I was thrown out of the meeting. So was Councillor Brewer.
Quite rightly.
As a point of order, Chairman, could we start the meeting?
Chair,
We haven't started the meeting yet. Do you want to speak anyway?
yes, I would like to ask a point of order.
We're not in a meeting, so points of order are not applicable.
Has it started yet? No?
Points of order apply during the debates. And I want to ask Jackie, was it you who quoted a point of order?
Yes, it was indeed.
Are you here as the proper officer?
I am here offering support to Hanford Parish Council in the conduct of this meeting this evening.
You're not the proper officer. I cannot do this. I can't. I can't do it.
Is that as clerk or proper officer?
There's no difference between clerk or proper officer.
Of course there is.
Yes, there is.
You must know under basic law.
Are we going to start this meeting?
It isn't the role of somebody who, however, kindly volunteers to do the clerking for a meeting to act as a proper officer if they haven't been appointed. That's against the law.
This meeting has been called by 2 councillors.
And let me also quote you the standing orders of Hanford. Will you stop talking, please?
Unless we are prepared to...
Will you just listen? Will you please listen? Will you stop being whatever it is you're trying to be and just clerk the meeting if that's what you want to do? Points of order, according to our standing orders, are determined by the chair. If you want to raise a point of order as a councillor, if you can raise a point of order, you state it, and then the chair decides. It is not for the clerk to raise a point of order. It is not for the clerk to decide the point of order. You must be aware of this. God knows what you're doing here if you're not.
Shall we elect an alternative, Chairman? So, Chairman, albeit late, shall we get this meeting started?
Right. We'll start the meeting. And I want to remind people of what I said at the start of last meeting, that this meeting has not been called according to the law. The law has been broken.
It has been properly called.
Will you please let the chairman...
Mrs. Weaver, please.
If you disrupt this meeting, I will have to remove you from it.
You can't.
It's only the chairman who can remove people from the meeting. You have no authority here, Jackie. No authority at all.
Over is removed from the meeting.
She's just kicked him out. I'm going Irish, so you can just whatever.
I have indeed.
No, she's kicked him out. No, don't. She's kicked him out.
This is a meeting called by 2 councillors.
Illegally.
They may now elect a chairman.
No, they can't because the vice chair is here. I take charge. Read the standing orders. Read them and understand them.
Dear me. Is it appalling? Mrs. Weaver.
Yes, it's appalling behavior. A copy of this will, in fact, be sent to the monitoring officer.
I'm the vice chair.
Where's the chairman?
Given the standing orders, it now reverts to me.
Where's the chairman gone?
Read the standing orders.
Would anyone like to elect a chairman for this meeting?
You don't have to elect a chairman. There's a chairman already installed. The chairman of the council.
Merkel, we've been through this.
What are you talking about? You don't know what you're talking about. The chairman of the council is the chairman of the council.
Burkill, could I ask you to be respectful to Jackie Weaver, please?
Council will now elect a chairman.
Here comes the subpoena.
Chairman!
I want to leave. She's kicked Barry out, so I'm leaving. No. We're trying to have a Thames maiden, you fool. We're trying to have a Thames maiden, you fool. We can't. Have you got that? You just don't.
Jackie Weaver, I find that the person on Aled Brereton's Zoom is being very disrespectful to everybody.
Oh, coming from you lot, that sounds good.
My first point is to apologise to Jackie. But somehow I'm Scottish now. What have you done to me, Starla? But welcome to Hanforth. May I start?
Indeed, indeed. Nothing if not lively in Handforth.
Oh, that was awesome.
Uh,
Thank you, Starla, for going total Dairy Girls on us.
yeah,
It
no.
was beautiful.
Blair here.
I have
Wow.
no Russian or German accent anywhere in my stable, so you know what?
We would like to welcome you to Hanford International Company.
Turned into the UN. It was great.
Oh,
Oh my gosh.
I think
yeah.
Aled's iPod is a spy.
I was half tempted to try to do Spanish for Burkill, but at the moment I just couldn't pull the accent off.
So that actually brings up a really good point. It is super hard to, like, I was given a character direction and I could not do it because I could not do the proper voice. So
Well, like in a real world circumstance, there are tools that you can look up to help with various accents,
right,
as
right.
opposed
So like
to doing them
if
on the
I
spot.
was yeah, if I was preparing for a role, there are like things that I could do to prepare for that, but like yeah, I got nothing, so
I had to
gave
do
you
a
what I
Russian
had.
once. Ooh, and it was not fun. There was I had to kind of like run through Chekhov in my head every time beforehand.
I have been doing it since 2006 and having a whole stable of Russian superheroes.
Yeah.
And they always say with any accent or any voice, have a phrase that helps you get into that accent. And for me, it's not necessarily moose and squirrel, but it's that one little snippet from Iron Man 2 where oh my gosh, my brain is fried. I cannot remember.
He wants his bird.
Yes, I want my bird.
Bird.
My bird.
I need
want
my bird.
bird. And you just that because it helps to kind of train your mouth and your tongue, and you get that you get a lot of the dominant, noises. So, but yeah, that having that one little phrase, but damn, Starla, you killed me. Oh my gosh.
I didn't mean to like derail the whole thing, but I'm just like, this is
Oh, it was awesome.
this is terrible. I can't. So
No, it's just the lilt at the end. I was like, oh my gosh.
It was beautiful, but without that hook phrase and having the accent firmly in your head, you end up with, especially when you're doing accents, you end up with international drift, which was part of what I experienced trying to do Tolliver as a meek Russian that he kind of drifted into Italian, he drifted into Jewish. It's like, pick a lane.
We have a question.
We do have a question.
Ooh.
It's what are the best resources for learning accents? Who wants to field that one or start?
There are
I have found good ones online before that I just don't remember the specific name of right now, but I think if you Google like acting dialect resources, and there are all sorts of, like the one I'm thinking of that I don't remember the specific name of has like a database where you can pull up all different sort of dialects, and it has like a paragraph of text that has all these different phonemes in it and reads
That's the George Mason Speech Archive.
Ah, there you go.
And it is awesome. Yes.
I've actually, because I've had like little snippets here and there, I had to look up like some Greek pronunciations, like a character was like talking to family, and it was just these little short things. So I actually went to YouTube, and there was a guy that's like, here's how to say like a whole bunch of different words with a Greek accent, and he was obviously Greek, but yeah, so he just had this list of words that he read off, and it was actually really, really helpful for me just to learn how to pronounce like um, the different vowels and certain consonants like R's and like D's, and sometimes like a D will be like a harder like a T, or sometimes a T will sound more like a D. So it's yeah, I've gone to YouTube a lot to hear native speakers from other countries speaking English with their accent.
Where are you hearing those native speakers there, Starla?
Well, I try really hard not to stray into drunk leprechaun territory.
Oh, Giguere.
Sure, and Begora, yeah. V, what was that George Mason one again?
It's called the George Mason Speech Archive. And it really is, it has samples, and there's like Christiana said, every speaker there reads the same paragraph of text, and it's written in IPA, the International Phonetic Alphabet. It's written phonetically. And so you can follow along and see what the differences are, and there's some analysis for the accent. Another good site is Forvo. I'll put that in the chat, forvo.com. And that's great when you've got to find phrases in other languages. For YouTube is a great resource. And if you search up accent tag, that's great for understanding how people talk, even just going from state to state. Wired.com had an awesome 3 or 4 video series looking at accents in the US and just going up and down the East Coast, across the South, across the Midwest, going up north. And it went so far as to look at accents in POC communities. They did a whole separate thing on Native Americans and the individual res accent, which is really, really cool to listen to. That's good. And then another guy who does it just wonderful with accents is Saturday Night Live alumni Fred Armisen.
Really?
And he has a lot of interviews where he talks about going through different areas. And one of the reasons I like watching him is he explains where the sound comes from in your jaw, in your face, your mouth. And it's not just the physical placement, but he gives you an idea to go along with it.
And
So
those are absolutely great, because you don't just learn to say a word, you learn to talk an entire
Yes.
accent, because you learn where people in that place have to talk.
yes. Yeah. And then you find gems everywhere. I found a fantastic, I think 20-minute tutorial on how to have a Boston accent, which I understand, I've got Northeasterners, all
Well,
y'all.
I've lived in Boston for 10 years, and it's still a little bit hard to crack. But the best tip that I ever got is that, like, everyone knows that you park your car in the garage, but you also go out for a slice of pizza.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You got to put the R's on as well as
yep.
take them off.
Yeah,
See, I'm
they just
actually
get moved around. Yeah.
I'm from the Boston area, so I had to work really hard to lose that accent when I first started doing professional voice work. So I try really hard not to listen to that accent. But I go back home, and man, it's like
being able to do it authentically. That's the thing. Just because you can't do a certain accent, if you have some that you do really well, you're going to be in demand, because you can rely upon it. And you can always, if you're someone who's really getting into voice acting, and you'll want to level up, you get a coach. That's what you do. I've done it several times, and it's worth the investment, and it's fun.
So I think somebody was asking about Fred Armisen.
Yeah, Fred Armisen. There's, I think it's a Tonight Show. It's a Tonight Show with Jimmy Fallon on YouTube, but he does a couple, and it's really, really fun to watch.
There was this other video that I saw of a woman who I believe she was vision impaired, but she had this video where she explained how to do like 20 accents in like 2 minutes. And because she had trained herself to listen to all of these, and she could speak with all of them, and she sort of demonstrated each of them. And I cannot for the life of me, like I remember the video and I could see her face, but I cannot for the life of me remember her name, but it was awesome.
Well, we are starting to run out of time, it looks like, but we do have an after chat on Discord in the Pride of Baltimore room. So I hope everybody will kind of mosey on over there. We had a panel on Friday night, I think it was, where it just went on kind of forever, and then hardly anyone showed up in the Discord, but we were there. But hopefully you'll come and join us. And that is all for this time. So I want to thank everybody, and I want to give everybody a chance to tell us a little bit about what they're up to. I'm going to start with Starla. Go ahead.
Well, you can find links to all of my stuff at starlahuchton.com. My design stuff is designedbystarla.com. I am at Starla Huchton on Instagram and Twitter. I have Facebook pages. But yeah, you can find links to all of my stuff on starlahuchton.com.
And Christiana?
All of my stuff is at christianaellis.com, and most of my voice work these days goes into my various NPCs that I play on
She's
my Dungeons and
amazing.
Dragons campaign. Thank you. Called So Many Levels. Starla is a player on that, and so we stream those on Twitch. Then they get posted as videos on YouTube and audio podcasted well. That's all on christianaellis.com. But also, in the last year, I've recorded 2 episodes of Pseudopod, in which, in both cases, I do New Englandish accents. So go listen to those and then tell me if you think that I'm terrible. Or rather, actually, don't tell me if you think that I'm terrible, but the other way, you know.
All right. And Doc?
Okay, I just dumped links to all my stuff into the chat, but you can find me at doccoleman.com, like everybody else. There's my author page if you're interested in my published works, and my Facebook fan page. I'm currently working on the sequel to the I can't talk anymore. Sheesh. The Perils of Prague, which is The Kindred of Kali. And hopefully that will be out sometime in the next year. I was aiming for this fall, but I don't think I'm gonna make it. And you can find me on Twitter as Scalesley.
All right. And Veronica?
So again, Veronica Giguere, aka V. You can find me at www.voicesbyveronica.com. Also, I guess for the longest and free example of all the crazy voices that I've done over the past decade, oh my gosh, is www.secretworldchronicle.com, a podcast novel written by Mercedes Lackey, Cody Martin, Dennis Lee, and yours truly. And I will pop those in the link, and you can find me on Twitter at V for Voice, and Voices by Veronica on Instagram and Facebook.
Awesome. And I am Mike Luoma, and I'm at glowinthedarkradio.com or mikeluoma.com, and you can hear my podcast each week and hear a couple of these people actually on that podcast doing some cool voice cameos for my Vatican Assassin 15th anniversary edition. And I think we are just about out of time. So I want to say another round of thank yous for doing this whole Handforth Parish Council thing and the Russian version as well. So thanks again, everybody, and we'll see you on Discord.